The scene is a dinner party. There's a 15-year-old boy, his older sister, his father, and a handsome visitor called Julian. At dinner, Dad and Julian move from one saga to the next, passing the conversation back and forth across the table. Julian's voice is gentle but confident. One of those guys that always seems to know what he's talking about, even when he's talking shit. Denise makes no pretense at listening when Dad sets off on one of his monologues, but whenever Julian is in mid-flow, she remembers to nod and smile in all the right places, and even lets out the odd, "Really?" or "I see." I sit across from Julian, but he doesn't look at me all the way through dinner. He actually sits across from me and behaves as if I'm not here. I shift around in my seat, my head burning. At some point, drunk, I stretch my foot out under the table and touch my toe to his knee, let it rest there for a while. His mouth flickers. I run my foot up and down the inside of his leg until the colour rises in his cheeks. He coughs and pulls back. He keeps pushing all that thick blonde hair back from his forehead. My eyes wander up and down the deep furrows left by his fingers. If you look closely, you can see the fine threads of copper and silver all mixed up with the blonde, the pepper shakings of stubble. I push and pull at my lips like I'm moulding Play-Doh. I can understand why he fascinates my dad. He's like a TV idea of a fine young man. Sometimes I think about our life together. When I'm 36, Julian will be 57. What will he look like then? Maybe his skin will be rough, his body hair like wire. There will be more give in his waist, slackness around his neck and under his arms. His balls will hang somewhere between his thighs. His breath will be musty. Will he still have that oven-baked smell between his legs? What kind of noise will he make when he comes then? What will it feel like to have him in my arms, on top of me, or under me? Julian is telling us about the woman he's been living with. Dad claps his hand together. "Oh, is she a harridan, Julian?" Julian pulls himself up in his seat. "To be honest, I really don't think she likes me." "Impossible," hisses Dad. Julian tears off a chunk of bread and dabs it in his pasta sauce. Through a muffled mouthful he says, "When I get home from work, I go into the kitchen to put on the kettle, and she'll be there listening to the radio. 'Hello,' I'll say, 'and how was your day?' But she'll have none of it. She just turns off the radio and walks out without a word." Dad reaches across the table, his eyes shining. He stops just short of taking Julian's hand. "Well, you must come and stay with us. We've plenty of room, haven't we, kids?" Denise nods. "Well, it's true, there is a spare room." I push my chair back, scrape it back as loud as I can. "Now's a good time to buy. Prices are coming down." All three heads swivel round in my direction. I look away. "Well, I watch the news." I go out into the hall. It's almost icy after all the hot air in the dining room. I go into the toilet and sit on the edge of the bath. My head reels from the wine. I close my eyes and tip my head back, breathe deeply. Julian's loitering in the hall with his hands in his pockets. Behind him the chink of plates, Dad reminding Denise the correct order to load the dishes into the dishwasher. "You looked fed up in there." Julian takes my hand, laces his fingers through mine. They feel hot, moist. "I'm fine." He runs his thumb around the centre of my palm. I don't want to smile, but I can't help it. That's more like it. I let him touch me on the face and neck. He moves closer, his lips pushing forward, separating and overlapping with mine. A hand closes around my wrist. I feel the metal strap of his watch bite into my skin. I open my mouth, touch my tongue to his, put my arms around his waist and steady myself against him. I feel the weight of his hard-on against the top of my leg. I take a hold of his cock through the folds of his trousers and work my hands up and down a couple of times. He gasps and laughs and puts his hand over mine, pulling away. My breath as it comes out accelerates into a charge of giggles. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "If you like. My flat monster's away all day." Lunchtime, pick me up at the gates at 12:10. He leans into me again, so close I can see the tufts in his nostrils. I start to laugh as he undoes one of the buttons on my shirt, pushes his finger through the gap. He swipes at my nipple for a moment before freeing his hand. Dad comes out of the kitchen carrying a full cafetiere, a childlike, hopeful look on his face. "Oh, Julian, I wasn't sure if you were staying for coffee." Julian smiles round at him. "That sounds marvellous, Richard." He turns and follows my dad back into the dining room without looking back at me. His shoulders swing from side to side as he walks. I'm fascinated by the hardness of him, the planes and angles of his body, his sharp edges. I want to run after him and grab him by the collar, pull till the seams split, rip it, tear the silky, satiny fucking thing to ribbons. In my room I drop onto the bed. I can't be bothered taking off my clothes. There are cardboard boxes of junk in the corner full of books and old toys. I have a root around in one of the boxes. Here's old one-armed action man, a handful of chipped Star Wars figures, a pile of books underneath. The one on top's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. The pages are browning at the side and it smells like the inside of a cupboard. The picture on the cover is of a beautiful boy dressed in overalls with a basket hat on his head, standing in front of a lake and holding up a huge fish. Curly writing under the picture, "Now a major television series." The boy on the cover was my first crush. I loved him desperately. I used to lie in bed and wonder why thinking about that boy made my throat choke with sadness. Downstairs, Julian is leaving. I hear Dad's voice getting louder as they wait in the hall for Denise to get his coat. I tiptoe across the room and switch off the light so she won't knock on the door and ask if everything's all right before she turns in. Next I hear Julian crunching across the path to his old two-seater, the rumble of the engine, all that choky revving. The car headlights swing across the front of the house like twin searchlights. They light up the box bed with the pale blue cover, track over the beanbag, the table with the TV and the computer on it, fall on the boxes of old toys before shrinking through the wall and away. Thank you.